This episode is brought to you by Our Daily Bread Ministries, a global media organization that makes the life-changing wisdom of the Bible understandable and accessible to all. Visit whereyou'refrom.org for more information. That's whereyafrom.org.
Welcome to Grace Enough Podcast and the 12 Days of Christmas in July series, brought to you by schoolhouseteachers.com. A firm Christian-based worldview is the springboard needed in today's world, which can be attained with a schoolhouseteachers.com education. Use code EXPLORE to pay only $179 for a 2-year ultimate membership during schoolhouseteachers.com Explore the World BOGO event. This is an incredible savings opportunity. Sign up now and receive a complimentary Explore the World tote while supplies last. Certain restrictions will apply. With your schoolhouseteachers.com membership, you can create your own homeschool schedule using over 400 unique courses, videos, lap books, unit studies, and more. One price covers the entire family, giving you immediate access to hundreds of resources, including virtual school boxes for kindergartners through high schoolers. Sign up at schoolhouseteachers.com using code EXPLORE today. Now, let's jump in to our 12 Days of Christmas in July series. Do you find it challenging to come up with gift ideas at Christmas? 12 Days of Christmas in July is intended to not only give you a head start on Christmas gifts, but to introduce you to nonprofits and small businesses I recommend. To get in the gift-giving mood, I will be giving items away from all 12 episodes beginning Friday, August 6th, 2021. Follow me on Instagram at GraceEnoughPodcast_Amber to enter. Now let's jump in to day 5, featuring 10ofthose.com and founder Jonathan Carswell. Good morning, Jonathan, and welcome to the Grace Enough Podcast.
Thanks so much. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to introduce my audience and my listeners to 10ofthose.com. And so as we launch into our conversation, will you just tell everybody what is the mission behind 10 of those?
Yeah, 10ofthose.com is a ministry that seeks to handpick the best products from across the publishers. We handpick them knowing that they hold to the Bible, that they point to Jesus. And we're passionate about getting those books out and read by as many people as possible. So we discount them. And the more you buy, the cheaper they get. Our mission really is to have people pointed to Jesus through the books that they read.
Yeah, I love it because we were talking earlier and I told you that I was introduced to 10 of those through Nancy Guthrie, who she's been on the show. I have also been to a couple of her workshops, encouraged my girlfriends to go to her workshops, and have ended up at 10 of those. As a result, purchasing some books that you guys do put out because I know that they point to solid biblical views. And that is why I'm so grateful for what you're doing. And so share a little bit of the backstory of 10 of those and kind of how you guys got started.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm dyslexic. I find reading really hard work, and yet God has put me in this role. He definitely has a sense of humor. But yeah, I became a Christian when I was 16 and began reading really from that point. Particularly biography, Christian biography was my starting point. But your listeners will know there is so much available. How do you know what's good? How do you know what's not great? And also, how do you know what's actually harmful? Because there's plenty of books out there that they look like they're Christian, they feel like they're Christian, but they're not holding to the Bible and do you great spiritual harm. So as a bit of a hobby, while I was a youth minister in Northern Ireland, I began handpicking the books that I really loved, that I knew made much of Jesus. And I just started doing deals with publishers to say, look, if I buy these in bulk, what price can you give me? And then I would be selling them on in tens to anybody who would take them, really. So that's where the name comes from. 10 of those came from people just saying, I'll get 10 of those, 10 of those, and 10 of those. And so it grew from there. And people said, oh, could you get some other stuff? but that our whole mission of we only want to sell stuff that makes much of Jesus, that holds the Bible, that we've stuck to that the whole way through. Our range is much bigger, but still on this principle of we want it to hold to the Bible. And so, yeah, I got to a point where I needed to decide what I was going to do. Was I going to go into carry on with youth ministry, or was I going to go into this? And so, stepped out in faith a bit, really, and then selling online to churches, to individuals, but also to conferences. So you've seen us at Nancy's events where we do pop-up bookstores for churches or for conferences, where we'll make recommendations of good books and then make them available there and discount them. We're all about getting them out and therefore want to make them as low cost as possible. You don't have to buy 10 anymore.
That's right.
But the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. And then we seek to use our profits to support people around the world who otherwise couldn't afford the resources. So that's it's a bit like tithing, really. You then fund other people getting the books.
I love that that's how you started, because I think about people who ask me questions all the time. So, Amber, I really want to study this book. What would you recommend? Or, hey, I saw you take a picture of this book. What was that again? And that really is how the word spreads about good or bad, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think word of mouth is actually really important when it comes to discipleship and mentoring through books. And tell people if you've read a really good book that's excited you about Jesus, and warn them if you've read one that just actually was a real duffer, is the word we'd use in the UK. But something that's going to do you harm. Tell people, hey, look, I really avoid this book or this author, but go for this one because they make much of Jesus. That is so helpful. And I love getting recommendations from people for that.
Yeah. And I mean, just like what you said, it is becoming even more and more prevalent what is out there, as writing a book to me seems like, the in thing to do nowadays.
Oh, it's easier than ever before to write a book, whether it's through self-publishing or what have you. But it's harder than ever before to know what's good because there's so much out there. Yeah.
That's right. Well, and you already shared, you guys aren't a nonprofit, but you do distribute resources in such a way that you can come alongside and support ministries, as long as it comes along your statement of faith. And so what are some of the ways that you do distribute some of the resources that you have and that you make from 10 of those?
Yeah, so there are a number of different ways. Main ways are at the end of each year, we work out, well, what do we need to sustain and grow the ministry and keep going financially? And okay, what have we taken and what's left? And then we use that sort of excess fund to give en masse books, particularly for evangelism. We really want to focus on how can we get little seeds of evangelistic witness out through resources. So organizations like Crew over here or InterVarsity, we've got several links with InterVarsity overseas, where we support them with resources. There's an organization in the UK called the Faith Mission, who they've just bought a truck that is going to travel around and do evangelistic services, and we were able to send them just recently a few pallets worth of books and leaflets, etc. And that's all paid for by individual customers. We don't ask donors, we just use our profits. But also individuals, you'll often hear us at a conference, we say it slightly tongue-in-cheek, but it is how it works. We'll say, look, if you haven't come prepared or you can't afford it, but you promised to read it, take the book, we'll give you it, and we'll overcharge somebody else. It'll all balance out. That overcharging actually is we don't overcharge. We just use the money from other people's sales to say, hey, look, we want to bless you. And particularly if it's an evangelistic book and we're a service, perhaps for a church, we'll say, look, if you're just visiting here and you're looking into what the Christian faith is about, would you take this as a gift from us to allow you to explore the Christian faith for yourself? No charge. And it's all paid for by the sales that are made. God has an amazing financial economy that's,
he really does.
He owns the cattle on a thousand hills. That has definitely worked within our sort of business model, which is basically a bit like a budget airline. So long as the seats are full, we can go. So long as we get the volume out, we can keep the prices down, but also use the profits to give away either in large numbers or in ones and twos.
I really do love that. And that's the reason why I wanted to have you on the show, is because I want people to know if they go to 10 of those, they can trust that what they're getting is solid biblically. And so even just now, I'm sitting here looking at your website, and it's things like, you guys are offering a Jen Wilkin 4-pack for $25.90. I mean, you're not going to find that anywhere else, where you get Women of the Word, None Like Him. I mean, her new book, The 10 Most Important Words. And so what are some of your favorite products or books that you guys offer? I know that's a really, really hard one. I'll preface that by saying that doesn't mean he likes one author better than the other, but just something that you really, really love, or maybe a popular one.
Yeah, it's difficult because different books for different seasons, different genres for different seasons, even. And so I'm often asked, oh, what's your favorite book? It's really hard to pick something out. And just because it's my favorite doesn't mean it should be somebody else's favorite either. We're all at different stages and different places in our walk with the Lord. I love biography. And so,
me too.
I think there's so much that can be learned from, not just for the good story, but to see, okay, this is what God can do when a life is dedicated to him. Evidence Not Seen is just a remarkable biography. I don't know if you've read that one, but the story of Darlene Deibler-Rose.
I haven't.
Oh yeah, I
will get it today.
Yeah, well, Ruth Graham Bell says, try this and see if you can put it down. It's unputdownable. It's a great one. I love Helen Roosevelt's writing. She was, if I can put it like this, in terms of her teaching, she was sort of Jen Wilkin of her day, in that she just wrote in a really perceptive biblical way, but she did it. Her teaching was often through story, because she was a missionary to the Belgian Congo, suffered dreadfully. I've never met somebody whose face shone as much when Jesus is mentioned. And, I think of Moses coming down the mountain and people knowing that he'd met God. Well, Helen was like that. You talked about Jesus, and it was like the love of her life just on her face was so clear. So love Helen Roosevelt. I think recently Created to Draw Near by Ed Welch was superb. I marked a lot of that. Another recent one called Another Gospel by Alyssa Childers. Found that really helpful, just from keeping the main thing, written by somebody who could have quite easily drifted away from the gospel.
Absolutely.
Just her network and circle. So I found that really helpful. If I was going to a desert island and I was given my Bible and one other book, it would be a toss-up between, and this is a bit of a cheat because it's a 7-volume pack, but J.C. Ryle's Expository Thoughts on the Gospels is absolutely remarkable. Don't let it put you off that it's kind of expository thoughts of, it sounds like and it's a 7-volume series. It sounds sort of heavy and academic, and it is absolutely outstanding. And I'd recommend that for absolutely anybody. The other one, though, would be What the Bible's All About by Henrietta Mears. That is a wonderful Bible handbook of seeing how the whole Bible, though lots of different elements and parts, all fits together and points to Jesus. And she was a remarkable teacher. She used to run the largest Sunday school in the world. And
really?
So she was able to, she was able to present complex truths simply. And those two, it'd be a toss-up between the two, and I'd try and sneak them both in my bag of hats.
I want to say I'm so excited that this is what happens to me. People recommend books to me and I get so excited, and then I get them and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 50 books on my shelf. Well, how could I ever get to these?
A couple of things I'd say on those recommendations. All of those I wholeheartedly recommend, and I will give this guarantee to all of your listeners that if they buy any of those from 10 of those and they aren't blessed by it, write to me. I will personally send you your money back on all of those. But
look
also
at that. That's awesome.
On reading, and like I say, I'm dyslexic. It is a battle. But what I would say is little and often. On average, if you read for 15 minutes a day, you'll finish 20 books a year. That's considerable. 15 minutes isn't too long, but 20 books, that's a lot of learning and growing and teaching that you can receive. But I would also say books are there to serve us, not to rule us. So if you read 2 or 3 chapters and you think, do you know what, that's really blessed me, but I kind of get what the author's about now and teaching, and that's all you need, feel free to move on to the next one. They are there to serve you, not rule you. And even a paragraph or a sentence can be a remarkable blessing. And so little and often.
I love that, because I have said almost the exact same thing when people will say, how do you even find time to read every day? You do this and you do that. I'm like, I set a timer for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I read for 10 minutes. And most of the time, if time allows, it ends up being more than 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And that is the other thing that I found freedom in my reading, was stop feeling like you have to finish a book. Like once I took that weight off myself and just said, it may not even be that the book is quote unquote not good. It's just sometimes, like you said, something resonates with you now, or it might resonate with you later. So move on.
Publishers, I think, and authors could help us all by saying, actually, does this need to be 13 chapters? It could be 7, and these sorts of things. I think that would be helpful. And often it's done because they want to kind of up the price. But yeah, they're there to serve us. And we shouldn't feel guilty if it sits on the shelf for a year or two before we read it. We don't think, I've not driven my car for 3 days. I must go out and use it because I feel bad. It's there to serve us, and books are the same. Just on the time thing, there's an app called Redeeming Time, which you can put in whatever length of time you've got. So, okay, you're waiting to pick up the kids from school or from practice or whatever, or I don't know, before anyone wakes up, and you've got a little bit of time. You can say, right, I've got 7 minutes. It will then tell you which books of the Bible you can read in that time.
Really?
It's a great app. Yeah, it's called Redeeming Time. It's designed really to say, okay, you've got a little window. This is what you can read in that time.
Oh my goodness. Look at you. You're like really educating me today. I'm so grateful.
It's free as well. It's even better.
Oh, that's awesome. I know. I mean, this is totally off the cuff, but do you think you'll ever add audiobooks to 10 of those?
Yeah, we are just beginning to do some. I think Audible are just really convenient. I think, people often ask us about Amazon, and kind of one thing they've got absolutely is that it's convenient. Mm-hmm. However, both Audible for audiobooks and then Amazon, they don't discern what's on there. So there's some real junk that could harm you. So be careful with that. They're also not very cheap anymore. They were previously to wipe out the competition, but now you'll pay more for those places. And obviously they're not supporting Christian mission and some of the things that they are stocking or now refusing to stock. So audiobooks I think are really helpful. Though I, as a dyslexic again, as say that it is helpful to have audiobooks. You don't quite take as much in. And you perhaps know that in your mind.
It's interesting that you say that, because see, my husband would totally argue against that, like only because as he's become the role that he has in his work, he's able to listen more than he is able to sit and read. And I'm like, sometimes I think it's just a way we train our brain too.
Totally. Yeah.
And so he'll read parts of a book, but then he'll also buy it on Audible. And that's what I say. I'm just like, listen, make sure you're doing at least one, if not both. Like, don't not read at all because you think that audio listening is not reading.
That's absolutely right. I mean, we've got to feed our minds, and that can be whether it's an audio book, chatting with friends, reading, etc. There's lots of ways to grow and feed. And we mustn't make an idol of reading, and we must never be reading Christian books at the expense of reading God's word.
Amen. All
of the authors that we sell, bar one, are fallible and get it wrong. And we must remember that, I love Helen Roosevelt's stuff, but she needed a savior too. And we must remember that in our reading. There's much to be learned, but let's not make an idol of them either.
Good word. Well, so as we close up here, tell me, what is your favorite thing? What is something you just absolutely love about the work that you're doing?
10 of those exists fundamentally because when a book points somebody to Jesus by his Spirit, he can change their life. And I mean, it gives me goosebumps and my hairs stand on end just thinking about it. The times where people come back to us or they send us an email or even a tweet or whatever and say, you recommended this book, I read it and it impacted me in this way or that way, or as a result, I'm now doing this or doing that. That I just think is, well, praise God that is happening, because they're encountering him, and by the Spirit, new life or a growth as part of their life is coming. And that's why we do it. We just want people to love Jesus, and if books can play a small part in that gets me up in the morning. Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here, Jonathan. And I just want to remind everyone, it's 10ofthose.com, and it is that across all platforms. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. And across international as well. So if you're listening outside of America, still 10ofthose.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here and for doing what you do. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
You really can't go wrong shopping at 10ofthose.com. To be honest with you, a week after my conversation with Jonathan, I hopped on and purchased the books he recommended. In the giveaway that will be coming at the end of the 12 days of Christmas, you will have the opportunity to enter to win a $10 off discount to 10ofthose.com. So hop on over to Instagram and follow Grace Enough Podcast _Amber. Let's meet back here tomorrow for day 6, featuring The Radical Book for Kids by Champ Thornton.